Take two. All right. Hi, Rick.
Hey, Megan, how
Happy
you doing?
Thanksgiving week.
Happy Thanksgiving week for sure. I love it.
I know. I love it. The air is cooler and
It's good.
yeah, it's nice. It's a nice
Yeah.
time to kind of take a deep breath and reconnect with the people that
hmm
you love, right?
For sure. No doubt about that. Great time.
So we are talking today because
hmm
people are always wondering how they can get financing, right? And everybody has a different set of circumstances, but oftentimes people want to buy investment properties, but sometimes
hmm
they lack the 25% down payment or, you know, something like that, some kind of
hmm
scenario. So you
hmm
and I were talking about a tool that one of my clients is using. And so I
hmm
said, geez, we need to do a podcast on that. So Rick, tell us
Yeah.
about this loan that we talked about this week.
Yeah. It's really, really cool. And this is a program that's not really widely known, but we should really share it more because it's a great program. And so here's what this is. It's called DSCR. What that means is debt service coverage ratio. So DSCR is the loan. And so, well, what does that mean? That means that sometimes we have buyers that they have the down payment, they've got great credit, but for whatever reason, they don't show the income enough sufficient to be able to buy the investment property. Okay. So what do you do? Well, that program is designed exactly for that scenario. And so what happens in that loan program, we're not qualifying the buyer based on their income. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, we don't ask for W-2s, pay stubs, or anything whatsoever with respect to income. We're not verifying their income. The only criteria to get this loan, of course, you have to have good credit still and the usual stuff and down payment
Right.
and reserves. But in terms of qualifying, we're only going to use the income that's produced by the income property, the rental income.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so as long as the rental income services that debt, that's why they call it coverage ratio. As long as the income, the rental income covers the amount of the total monthly payment, they qualify for the loan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if someone can make literally $50,000 a year in income, but if the debt or the income covers that debt service on that mortgage, they qualify for the mortgage. Pretty
Mm-hmm.
cool. And it's also great for self-employed buyers, right? We know self-employed buyers, sometimes they don't, because of all their write-offs, they don't have all the income. They have the income in reality, but because of the tax codes and what they get for write-offs, they can't show the income on the net bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect loan. Perfect loan.
Yeah. Yeah. That's called having your cake and eating it too.
Exactly right. Yeah.
So well, that's interesting. Okay, so what are the guidelines? So can you buy a single family house with this loan?
You can. It's a great question. Thank you. You can do a single family residence up to 4 units investment. Now, if you're buying units, in other words, 2 to 4 units,
Mm-hmm.
you can live in one of those units.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, that should still cover it. I'll double
Yeah.
check that, of course, but I think that would still cover it because it's still an
Mm-hmm.
investment property. But
Mm-hmm.
nonetheless, most of the time we did this loan for a pure investor type of buyer, right? So
Mm-hmm.
all you can do is a refinance. Do you want to do a cash out refinance? So these investors have lots of equity, right? And so they
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of equity in this market. And they go, well, what if I could take some of that equity out and buy another investment property?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can now take that equity out, do a DSCR loan, and buy the next property with a DSCR loan.
Good Lord. This is like a DSCR domino here.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right. So how do they determine what the rental value would be? They do a rent study?
Yeah, so that's part of the appraisal process. They do what's called a rental survey. It's a Form 1007 on the appraisal addendum. And so the
Mm-hmm.
appraiser will do a market analysis of what the rents are, and we'll go by that number.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, this is interesting. So now this sounds really very good to be true. So what
Mhm.
kind of a rate hit do you take on something like this?
Not really. It's a very good rate. It's not one of these like a subprime, high rate, high cost loans at all. It's actually pretty good. It's going to be very comparable to like a standard 30-year fixed rate, full income verification loan. Without getting the exact rate quotes, there's so many factors there, but rates are up a tiny bit on those anyway. But
Mm-hmm.
mid sevens on a
Yeah,
30-year fixed rate,
not bad at
investment
all.
property.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not bad at all. I wonder
yeah.
if you can get a house with an ADU and count that as rental income. I mean, it's two. Is it like, I wonder if it has to be zoned a certain way or if an
Yeah, you got to go
ADU
by
is
zoning on
fine.
that one. Yeah, it's a great question. Great question. You got to go by zoning on that. But it's got to be zoned for, well, actually, you know what? If the if the primary, the front house is also going to be a
Yeah.
rental property, yes, you could
Yeah.
do that. Now, the
Okay.
question becomes, we have to test that because the question becomes, can we use the income on the ADU?
Right.
Now, there's some criteria around that. Typically, if it's got a separate meter,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you should be able to
Mm-hmm.
use the income. It's total income to the property, but the appraiser has to be able to identify that as additional income. And if they do, you
Mm-hmm.
should be good with that. But as long as you
Yeah,
have a separate meter, you should be
yeah,
fine.
because ADUs are obviously very popular and
They are
there's
very
more and
popular.
more property. And one of my other clients just sent
Hmm.
me something that he found online that after the first of the year,
Hmm.
because we live in, a historic neighborhood, so
Right.
uh there's a lot of ADUs that
Hmm.
were originally, close to something that would be considered an ADU, but maybe not quite all the way. But anyway, and so after the first of the year, there's a lot of requirements waived on um, the legality of an existing ADU that's like, over 50 years old. And so
Hmm.
typically, if the city, for example, finds out that you have an ADU that's not permitted, well, then they're all over you like white on
Sure.
rice, and they,
Sure.
it's expensive and they have to do a study and maybe you have to hook up the utilities different. I mean, geez, like what a pain in the behind,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And so now after the first of the year, they're going to make it more so not necessarily uh, uh inspecting for engineering, things like that, but just
Hmm.
habitability
Hmm.
and giving it a pass. So, oh, that should be very interesting. Well,
Yeah.
I like this loan. What about the cost for the loan? Like besides the interest rate, are there higher closing
No.
costs?
Mm-mm.
No?
Same
Oh,
as any
wow.
other investment property in terms of costs.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
this could
It's
solve a
pretty cool,
lot of
right?
problems for people. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
I'm glad
for
that we
sure.
talked about that. Yeah.
And by the way, just to go back to that point about the income, in our case, when we're working on now, the income was lower, right?
Hmm.
Below rent, below market value on the income from that property. But we're going to now use the income that the appraiser is going to give us for the market rental income for that property.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
the market income for that property is higher than what the previous tenant was paying,
Right.
much higher.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so
that's good.
we're going to use the income limit or the income value that the appraiser will give us for that property.
Wow.
Pretty cool,
I
huh?
wonder, yeah, I wonder, geez, yeah. So
And you
many,
do
so
not,
many things I'm thinking about. Yeah.
yeah, because there's so many things you can do with this program. By the way, it does not require tax returns,
Hmm.
does not require W-2s or paycheck stubs.
Wow. So you
So
can,
we're not going to look at the income on the schedule. So typically, if someone owns investment properties, they have a Schedule E on their tax returns, which shows all the income and expenses for that property.
mhm,
On
mhm.
this DSCR loan, we're not going to use that schedule. We're not going to use the tax returns for that.
Wow.
I
Wow.
know.
Very loosey goosey.
Mhm.
Well, could be a problem solver. So Rick, thank you very much for telling us about the DCSR.
SR.
I was going to
Mhm.
say LR.
DSCR. Debt service,
DSCR.
yeah, debt service
Yeah.
coverage ratio.
Okay.
It's a
Got it.
mouthful.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. All right, good. Well, thank you, Rick, very much. Thanks for
Thank you,
sharing that. I'm
Megan.
sure some people are going to find this very interesting and want to know more about it. So get yourself ready. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I will talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks. Take care,
Thank
everybody.
you.
See you later.